Hey, it's Tim and Lisa, and you're listening to the REI Concierge podcast. The REI Concierge helps Americans living abroad find and buy great investment properties in the U.S. From analyzing markets to finding local partners to closing your first deal, we are partnered with you every step of the way. Let's jump into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the REI Concierge podcast with Tim and Lisa. We are really excited to have Jason Hokaj as our guest today. Jason, welcome.
Well, thank you. Yes, happy to be here. Today, tonight, tomorrow, this morning.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Tim is early morning in Maryland. I'm actually currently in the Maldives. It is late afternoon here.
Late afternoon.
And Jason, you're in Seoul. It's the end of your day there. So another one of these cool conversations where we are literally spread across the globe.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm drinking coffee. Jason's drinking beer. We're all just, keeping it loose. It's going to be awesome.
I'm drinking water. I'm going to clarify. I'm drinking water. It's not 5 o'clock yet.
This is keeping us all in bounds.
Yeah, right. So Jason, we're super excited because Jason is actually a client of ours, and he's the first client we've interviewed on the podcast because we think he has an amazing story. And it was a little crazy how he kind of just jumped into this and did it very, very quickly in the midst of a transition from Germany to Seoul and a promotion and, juggling a family and multiple properties closing in multiple markets kind of simultaneously. So there's a lot to unpack here. And we're kind of pumped to hear about your thoughts and your frazzled state of mind right now. But let's start off by just tell us who you are, Jason, like where, you can do what you are, where you are now. Maybe where you were when we first started talking, and we'll kind of get into it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm in the military, was stationed in Germany, now stationed in Korea. And basically my wife, who unfortunately she's not here. I mean, she's here, but she's doing other things right now, unpacking some boxes, I'm sure. We wanted to find some other way, something else to do with our money, something better to do with our money. And she started doing just a little bit of research into real estate. And then I started doing a whole lot of research into real estate and found you guys. And I thought, found your website, listened to all the podcasts, read all the blogs, and I was like, need to contact you guys. And so I think it's important to say, again, we're all international, and this has happened all internationally. I have not set foot in the United States since we've started.
Wow.
Now three properties, well, 2 and 1 on the way later, 4 units, 5 units. Hopefully.
It's kind of like having, like birthing a child. Like it takes a while, right? They're on the way. Your house
they're on the way.
On the way.
We've got them planned for sure. They're there.
And I would be remiss. If when my son's old enough to understand what's going on, you're not just like in the military. You're like a fighter pilot. I just want that to be out there because my son would be stoked, and he's always flying around jets. And I'm like, Jason's a fighter pilot, buddy. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad, but I just want to throw that out there because it's awesome. All right. So enough segue there. So let's go back to how we first began. That was for you, Adam. I hope you're listening, buddy. Let's go back to Germany, shall we?
Yes.
And I want to talk, and Lisa, take this whatever direction you want to, but I want to talk about, let's go a little bit more into Dawn started researching real estate a little bit. You dove in head first, and you went hard. I mean, you went hard. Like you talked to us, and you were just like, I just remember Jason's like, so I'm moving to Seoul, transitioning my entire life in like a month. Do you think I can get a property before then? And Lisa and I were like, yeah, I think so. And then 3 came. So in multiple markets with different partners, all at the same time.
Yeah.
But before we get into the details, tell us a little bit about why you wanted to get into real estate. Because, Lisa and I are always harping on the why, and you have a pretty strong why. Like I remember us when we first started talking, like this is why I want to do this versus other investment vehicles. So let's do that a little bit first.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I'm at a point in my career where I could retire. I could have retired. I haven't retired. But I absolutely wanted the ability to control my own destiny after this assignment. And I wanted to be able to make the determination, you know what, I don't need the money, or I want to stay in because I want to stay in rather than I need to stay in. 2 kids getting ready for college. And so all of those things played in my mind. And really it was, the passive income of owning rental properties. I did a ton of reading. I did a lot of research, and I've always wanted to be more in control of my finances. I've been doing the standard, putting everything into a Roth for myself and my wife, maxing out our TSP, which is the military or the government version of a 401k. But it never was like, you know what? And then I started reading. I was like, yep, I felt like, that was right. The way I was feeling was right, that, hey, there's something better out there. So again, then there's real estate. And so we have owned and sold houses that we have lived in. We still own. So I guess that there is 4 or 5 properties. Anyway, there's still a house that we own that we rent out. But that was prior to talking to you guys, because that was our game plan of like thinking, okay, we'll buy a house, we won't sell it, we'll rent it out, and then, when the career is over, we'll just sell them and we'll reap the benefits. But then talking to you and researching real estate investing, I was like, the whole selling point is not necessarily what was driving me. It was more of the passive income from multiple properties, and maybe not, maybe they're not the greatest in the world but there's still a investment vehicle that is, you have control over, or I feel, and I know you guys do as well. You feel like you have more control over than normally.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's one of the things that we love about it. And I'm curious to kind of stay in that part of the story when you were introducing yourself and kind of saying how you got connected with us and stuff. You had some money sitting there kind of that you wanted to be doing something else for you. Just out of curiosity, like was your money in the market? Was it in a savings account? What was it doing for you before real estate?
So right now, the money that I have used for real estate was just sitting in a savings account. And the idea was, since we didn't know where we were moving next, that was going to be the down payment on the next house that we were going to live in, as well as potentially a car. Since we're living overseas, we sold all of our vehicles, and whatnot. So it was just money that we had. Now, next steps, I'm still putting maxing out a Roth IRA, still putting money into a TSP. So we'll see how this goes and maybe make some shifts from there. So,
no, I'm really curious about this. I mean, we can go in a lot of different directions, but I know for a lot of people, when they're used to having a high balance in a savings account, and then they decide to purchase an investment property, it can be a little stressful to see that balance drop by tens of thousands of dollars. And I mean, what was that transition like for you and Dawn? Was that pretty easy, or was it a little bit of a shift in mindset? What was that like?
I would say that for me, honestly, it was very easy. And once I got the go ahead from Dawn, it was even more easy. But right.
Yeah, I can imagine that making it easier.
Yeah. Because it was money just sitting there and not making anything. And then again, anybody who's listening to this is probably listened to your other podcasts or read your blogs or whatnot, and realized just all the multiple ways that real estate can be beneficial. Even if you're not necessarily making money off of passive income, you're still getting appreciation. You're still able to get a tax benefit. There's so many ways that real estate helps you that you have much more control over than just putting money into a stock market and not knowing where it's going. Right? I mean, don't. I say that what company it's going into potentially, or mutual fund, but you have no control over how that company's going to go, right?
Yep.
Real estate, very, very different.
Yeah, no, like Tim says, it doesn't matter how many iPhones you buy, even of the iPhone 13 that's now out. But like, it doesn't matter how many you buy, like it's not going to have a direct impact on your Apple stock. So
right.
It's really true. And the other cool thing when we talk to people about the shift of, okay, you've got this money in your savings account, now you're buying a house. When you're following your net worth, that money is still yours.
Yes.
It's just in a different column on your spreadsheet. And that's another thing that's helpful with that shift in mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jason, let's do, before we get into like and I want to get into the logistics and details of how these properties came to fruition, because it was a little wild ride. And I'm so proud of you for just doing what you did. It was so fun to watch. You're just like, I think I like real estate and I'm buying 3. And it was like in 2 weeks. It was incredible. It was so fun. But going from that mindset of, I want to retire. I can retire, but I'm working because I want to, but I want a different vehicle to take care of us in retirement. Talk to us if you're comfortable with this. And if not, we're just going to edit this all out. But if you're comfortable with this, talk to us about the relationship with Dawn. And because this is something we talk about a lot. And this is something that I think is a big thing there's almost always someone in a marriage that's more into this thing called real estate investing than the other one. So like, were you kind of dragging her along, kicking and screaming, or she kind of started the reading and she's like, okay, you run with this? Like, I'm always interested to hear those stories.
Yeah, I would say more of the second than the first. So she is the math major. She is the smart one of the two of us, from the analytical side.
Yeah.
And I have always, since we've been married, there's been different, like, okay, I want to control all of our investments. We're not going to, I'm going to go straight into stocks. And we did options and we did like all this crazy stuff. Yeah. The cringe on the face.
I made a face. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Here's me.
But, so I always was around people that were seeming that took the time to were actively engaged with their finances. And I would say that for Dawn and I, we've kind of, that's always appealed to us, but it's never been something where we've had the time to do it. If you're doing the stock market, I mean, I tried it. I don't like it. It was way too stressful, and like, oh, buy, sell, no, right. I was 1 hour too late. So she kind of basically what it boiled down to is knowing that we were not going back to the States. We knew that we were going overseas again, and we didn't need to buy a house. And so she was like, all right, here's your budget, and go see what you can do.
I love it.
That's kind of where it was. And then now at this point, what I'm hoping is once I start seeing that profit, then it's like, okay, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one?
Yeah. That's the fun part. Keep it rolling.
Exactly. So anyway, I will tell you though, my biggest fear was, so before we called you, before we met you, we had refinanced the house that we still own, that we used to live in, that we're now renting out. We refinanced that, and we refinanced it from Germany. And that was probably one of the most stressful things for us to do, because I mean, just as a point of reference, we were, as you go through the realtor to the lender to the title company, I'm almost certain it was the title company called us up or emailed us 2 days prior and said, okay, here's where closing is at this time. And I'm like, what part of we live in Germany did you not hear a month ago?
Right.
And it was so stressed because then Dawn and I were sitting. I mean, Dawn, bless her heart, I'm sitting at the desk where the printer is, and she printed out all of the documents for closing. We brought the notary, signed everything, sent them back multiple ways, but the folks just didn't understand how to deal with somebody overseas. So I really thought that this was going to be impossible from being overseas until meeting you guys and talking to you guys and going, wow, people that are used to making this happen from afar. You yourselves have made it happen from afar. And I'm sitting here going, if I had only known you like 10 years ago, this would have been
thank you for the plug. We appreciate the plug. And
so that was honestly my biggest fear was, how do I do this from just phone calls and internet? And you guys have made it happen and made it possible. And the people you deal with make it happen and make it possible. So anyway, thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear. No, and it's a huge question. It's kind of, what got Tim and I started in even developing the REI concierge, because people would hear our stories of buying properties and I'd be like, oh yeah, I bought a house in Kansas City. Oh, like, are you from Kansas City? Have you been? Nope, never been there. Like, how do you do that? Like, and our favorite closing, while on vacation in the French Alps. It's like, this is a cool way to do real estate. And in order to make it happen, Jason, to your point, you have to have the right people on the ground, because it can be a nightmare if you don't have people that understand I live in Germany means I can't show up in 2 days and sign the papers in person. Like, if they can't make that connection, we're in trouble.
Right. So, it could have, like, this could have been a very different story, having not gone through you guys and not made the connections with the folks you connected me with. So, yes, real estate could be a horrendous thing. But you have made it, I just want to, through you and through the conversations and whatnot, and the education and the connections, it has been amazing. And even with all of the challenges, which I'm sure we're going to get into, even with all the challenges that I've had, it is still something that I'm not losing sleep over. Like, I know it's going to happen. I know the process is going to work. The people are going to come through. They're great. They're great people. They're great companies. It's going to all work out.
Man, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I have a lot to say about everything you just said, because there's so many good points you just made. Where, like, Lisa's big thing is, with her and John and investing in general, is being able to sleep at night. Sure, there are other okay investment vehicles, and you can, obviously, people make money in stocks. Lisa and I both have stocks. Jason, you have your TSP and other accounts and IRAs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when something like COVID happens, I lost a little sleep. When the stock tanked 20% in a day, I was like, oh, that's not cool. I didn't do anything about that. Like, like that's worrisome. Whereas, knock on wood, we didn't lose any rent. People still have to live in houses, and we still provide safe and, reliable housing for folks. So the peace of mind thing's huge. But let's get back to the point about investing from overseas, because it is like, it can be a nightmare. And I remember when we first started talking with you, it's always title. It's always title, man, right? It's always a title. They're like, all right, just come on down to the office. We're on West 45th Street. Just come down. We have some papers to sign. We're like, listen, man, I live in Seoul. Like, I can't be there in 16 minutes. So it's all about communication and working with the right people. So let's want to get into your properties. Let's get into your properties a little bit. All right. So we got the kind of, I just have so much I want to talk to you. I'm back and forth here. Because Jason has such a cool story.
Can I ask about the story before we jump into the property specifics? Jason, I'm curious, like, you started working with us, you clarified why you want to do this. Mm-hmm. Fill us in on the gaps between that and getting to where you were under contract on properties. What do you remember of that part of the journey, what it was like for you getting from here's why I want to do it, I'm really clear I do, to I'm under contract on a house?
So, the big rocks of that were obviously talking to you guys, you putting me in touch with some great people and some great companies that then, were able to show different types of properties. And then what I always felt very, very comfortable with was coming back to the two of you and saying, hey, I think this is a good idea, or I think this is a good property, and being able to bounce it off the two of you. And you're like, yeah, we'd go for that too. And I was like, all right, cool. But then it was, and one thing that, Lisa, I think it was you mentioned this very early on, was something that I never really caught from the podcast. I'm sure you said it, but it was the folks that you were having me deal with were also connected to the property managers. And so dealing with somebody who then, even though I had never met them face to face, I'd only done, through you guys, had worked with them. But then, Lisa, you mentioned something where like, well, they're willing to take care of these properties. So that says something about the quality of the properties to begin with.
Yes.
And all of that just kind of led me down this path of, this is all going to be okay. Now, and please understand too, like my wife and I, Dawn and I, had bought a house sight unseen. So we had already been through that on our own. So this was not such a huge leap to be making purchases of rental properties, never having seen them, never having set foot in the state, never having shake hands with the realtor or anything like that. So we had kind of already, broken that mold, if you will. But from the standpoint of, again, everybody is connected that you're connecting me with, made it very much, I didn't have to worry. Like, what piece am I missing? It was always there.
Yeah, that's super helpful, because if the people who are selling you the property are connected to then the people that are going to be managing the property, like those people need to be talking behind the scenes to know,
right,
they're going to be able to get quality tenants in there. They're going to be able to keep everything, investor, owner satisfied, tenant satisfied. And it's a tricky balance. Whereas I have been in some situations where I buy a house and whatever company I buy it from or the agent, once it's mine, they're out. Like they don't care what happens. They don't care how the management company does. And I've had to sort that out on my own a few times. So those situations where the selling agent and the property management company, there is a formal connection there. I have found that it certainly can be helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into now, once you're comfortable, and I think that is a huge point. Thanks for bringing that up. Is it's not just set it and forget it. Like you're on your own, go, but like these guys are all connected and they're all working towards the same end with you in the middle, all having the same goal. So I think that, was that simpatico? Is that a word? You're all simpatico. You all have the same goals in mind.
It's a good word.
If it's not, then I just coined it.
It's a good word. How many cups of coffee are you in this morning?
I'm on 3, 4.
Yeah.
But I say simpatico all the time. So I hope it's a real word.
We're just giving hard time.
So, all right, you made the mindset shift. Dawn's on board. Dawn ran the numbers. She's comfortable. You've talked to us. You trust us, which is great. Yeah. And we put you in touch with good people. Now, run us through the process of, I kind of want to see this from people who haven't done this. Let's see, how did you start analyzing properties? Like, what was the next step? Like you came to us, we kind of helped you find markets. And then what made you comfortable moving into the markets that you did? And then after that, the properties that you did, because it all happened very quickly. You're not a typical test case where it was just like, let's try 7 different markets and try them all out.
Hey, if I had a budget, I'm going to, all right, let's go.
Yeah. You're like, I'm moving into,
let's make this
I'm moving in 2 weeks. Yeah. I have X amount of dollars. I want to buy as many properties as this money can buy. And I'm moving to Korea. Go. And it just happened. So I want to like break that down a little bit, because I don't want people to hear this and be like, that's too much for me. Like it's too fast. Like just show us like kind of how it unfolded, I guess.
So one of the great things was that everybody who you put me in touch with, I had a phone call with, and the people that I've done business with have been folks that, from that phone call, they did not make me feel like, they were willing to educate me also. I felt comfortable asking them questions, and they're like, and then, people who I didn't even expect to give me different answers, like a lender telling, yeah, hey, that sounds fantastic. And oh, by the way, have you thought of this and this and this? And I'm like, no, but that's a great, I'll write that down. And it was just a great thing to think about. So it's everybody that I've dealt with that you put me in contact with have been people that I want to continue to do business with, but they never made me feel, I never once felt like, oh, you don't know anything, or you're not investing enough, or, but I never felt like I was getting sold something. Mm-hmm. I always felt like I was getting treated as hey, fantastic. I'm glad you're part of the team. Let's, let me help you and help us and whatnot. So, but anyway, so there was obviously looking at the properties, making the analysis. There were plenty of properties out there. And one of the things was more of, what do you say no to rather than what do you say yes to? Mm-hmm. I was not we're making it sound like I was in a hurry, but I really wasn't.
No, yeah, you weren't. Yeah. I remember that. It all just kind of played together and it worked. You weren't right. You're right. I'm glad. Thank you for making that point. It's not like I have to do this now. You were just like, can I do it? And like, it just happened to work out that way, right. Which is really cool. So,
yeah. So, it was one of those things where, it just kind of happened. And I was at the point where, and I can understand how somebody not comfortable with this could have totally missed it, go, okay, well, the next one will come by. Well, you know what? That next one won't necessarily be there. I had prepared, between talking with Dawn and I, we had prepared ourselves like, okay, hey, it's a good idea. Let's go. Tim and Lisa say it's a good idea. We're going to go. Okay, we're going to go.
It's really cool.
That's too much responsibility.
No. But the way and I know I've said this to you before, but the way the both of you come across, it is very much a learning aspect. It is very much we're going to help you through this. And again, I never felt like I was getting sold anything from you. You're like, hey, here's all the different markets. Here's all these different properties. Do your own research, make something happen, and then come back to us and let us know what you think. We're here for you to check and make sure that you're doing your homework right before you commit massive amounts of dollars.
Yeah, for sure.
So I really, really, really appreciated that feeling that I always had you guys as the backstop to anything that I was doing. So, I felt comfortable with it.
No, we appreciate that. And I think it goes back to really, our philosophy is there's not one right way to do this. There's not one right market out there. There's not one right, type of property and investment. You've got to find what's going to be best for you, and it was, I think laying that foundation and you and Dawn really having the conversations of, okay, this is the amount of money that we have budgeted for this. This is what we want our money to do for us. So we're really clear why we're doing it, what we want our money to do, how much money we have. And now let's see what's out there. And then when the right things came along, because I remember really distinctly that email where you were just like, well, do you think I could maybe have something under contract by June? and I remember Tim and I talking about it, between ourselves and thinking like, well, it's possible. Like, we're not sure if anything will come up, but yeah, totally possible. And so then responding to you and be like, yeah, let's just see what's out there. And then I think I reached out to you. There was a package of multiple duplexes that came up, and I was like, oh, I don't know, Jason, maybe you'd be interested in one of these. And 2 days later, you're like, all right, I'm getting 2 of them. And we're like, yes, that is awesome.
Yeah. And that is just, I want to double down on that before we get into what, your response there. That's super exciting for us. You know what I mean? Like, just to watch that, like, I have this amount of money. I've done my research. I remember you said, I think you're the only person on the planet that's read all of our blogs, which I really appreciate. And you're just like, I've read all the blogs. I got it. Like, you would challenge me on some numbers in the blogs. And I was like, this guy gets it. He's really into it. And then like, yeah, you were just like, okay, I've reviewed this package. I like 2 of them and I'm going to put offers on them right now. And I was like, that's it. Like that. And I think that's why we want to have you on, because like, you're just like, you just get it. And it really makes us feel so good to like, we're not selling stuff. Like you said, like we are here to educate. We're here to help other folks do what we've done because we really enjoy it. And we really like helping people see how this can be an avenue to financial independence and, bolster your retirement. Anything you wanted to do with real estate can help you do that. So when you just pull the trigger on 2, and then like, I think a week later you were under contract on another one, we were just like, I mean, we were just, applauding you from abroad. Like it was just so fun to watch. So thank you for doing that. It just makes like everything we do worth it. It was just so fun to watch.
Yeah. I would just say too, though, that, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there though, that sit like the other thing that you're not doing though, is you're not holding my hand through the whole process or telling me, hey, go do this, go do that. I mean, there is still work involved. And I would say for most people that, again, Dawn and I had some experience on our own. We knew what right should feel like. So coming to you guys, it kind of was like, yep, that feels right. So, but you could easily get into the fact of, somebody analyzing themselves to death. And, and at some point you just got to go, you know what? It's not going to be perfect. This is the 80% solution. And this, everything points to this being good. Why not do it? You can't make it a guarantee. You can't make it 100% ironclad all the time.
Yeah. I love that.
No. And I mean, like, I'd love to hear more about the journey, right? Because you got these properties under contract and everything did not go perfect.
It hasn't been going perfect, but
still hasn't been going perfect.
And I will just say up front, like before you share some of the details on that, one of the things that I have been most impressed with you, Jason, is just you stay just focused. Like, okay, and you've reached out a couple of times. What do you think I should do in this situation? What do you think I did? And, but yet you're just staying the course. And that's what can be really challenging and can throw people off at the beginning when everything doesn't go super smooth and swimmingly. And there's speed bumps and roadblocks and people are just like, oh, no, this isn't going to work out. It's not going to work out. And it's like, hold on, this was your 10 or 15 year plan. Remember that, not your 10 or 15 day plan. So when the first, when there's some hiccups along the road, people can get, it can be stressful for sure. So like, how have you, tell us some of the stuff that you've run into as these houses and
continue to run into?
No. I mean, this is so interesting. You mentioned, this package of duplexes, which was also something I had never bought more than one house at a time, ever, right? Until then. And, the company that we were dealing with they had never done this large of a package of duplexes at one time either. Right. And so the challenge was navigating that and being understanding of, hey, this is not necessarily going to go exactly on the timeline that you want it to, or that you expected it to. And I was very concerned. And again, this was all from, I was very concerned about my timeline of like, look, I'm moving. I might not be reachable. I need to get powers of attorney in place and all this kind of stuff.
I forgot all those things.
There were a few moving parts there.
There were slight, some small moving parts, but I did have, my dad came in and he's still there. He's still on the hook for the last one.
Nice.
I'll probably use him in the future. But anyway, but those little things like having somebody in the States that was able to sign, right? Yes. Do the powers of attorney in the States. That is important. And that's a small thing, but it could be a huge headache if you didn't plan for it in advance.
Yep.
With the duplexes, I mean, again, it was a massive multiple properties. I was only buying 2 of the multiple, but then, we're dealing with multiple other buyers also that have their own challenges of timing and whatnot. And this whole thing had to be done all at once. So, I mean, you just have to be patient there.
So let's, Jason, sorry, let's pause there. I want to go into the details of this deal just briefly so people can kind of follow along to the story. So I believe and some of my numbers might be wrong, but this was a package of 7 duplexes that one of our partners had come across. It was, the purpose of it was a 1031 for a seller who wanted to sell all of these and roll that money into, I don't know, a larger apartment building. So the bottom line is, not only did Jason have to get all his ducks in a row to close on 2 of these 7, but so did 5 other buyers, because on a 1031, you have to close on all these properties on one day. Right. So it's just a lot. Like, it's just, not only did you have to get, your stuff together and get everything, the power of attorney and all the logistics lined up on your end, but you were also juggling with 5 other people. And I think the date of closing changed 38 times. Within a couple of weeks. And like, it was a lot of coordination. So kudos to you for staying the course, and shout out to our partner in Kansas City, who just kind of like kept sane. Like, I just remember seeing the emails back and forth. I'm like, good Lord, there's a lot of moving pieces here. But like, it's just, I mean, what Lisa said, like, this is my, 10, 15, 30-year plan. Like, if hiccups happen in the first 30 days, much less the first, 2 years, you just got to ride it out. So yeah, I've always really appreciated about you seeing the forest for the trees, like, all right, these are hiccups, this is frustrating, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to remember this in 2 years. All I'm going to see is the cash flow and appreciation. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of, for those real estate nerds out there, say what was going on in this deal. So sorry, keep going.
Well, and then the huge benefit also of that deal was that all of the properties, at least the ones that I was purchasing, had tenants in them already. That was
more moving pieces.
Well, but it was also not necessarily something that in the research, like, you think about. It's more of like, buy something, update it and then rent it out, or you're buying something that is empty and hoping for tenants. Well, no, this is actually, the tenants are already included.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So now that we can get into more of this later too, but that has caused some challenge.
Sure.
Right. Every good thing has its bad sides as well. But so that was something that was very unique also, was, so the tenants are going to, so like, purchase this and then we're going to see cash flow almost immediately. All right. That's fantastic.
Exciting, isn't it? When that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pieces. Go ahead.
No, well, also though, after I actually saw the properties from a video, I was like, there's some work that needs to be done there.
But people already live there. So how do we do that?
Live there. So how do I make that happen?
Well, and I mean, talk about that, because that also can kind of throw some people off, and where it's that different mindset of, I'm buying a property, people are living there. When I look at the living conditions, I'm kind of like, I wouldn't want to live there. Should I want other people to live there? Like, talk about how you guys process that.
Yeah. So that was honestly a shock. I mean, because I know you guys saw it as well. That video, or at least Tim and I talked about it. I mean, video was an absolute shock, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me that somebody has allowed somebody to live like this in a property that they own. And fantastic properties on paper, and then you go in and you see a video and you're like, whoa. But a house is a foundation. It's more than 4 walls. It's more than the current tenants. It's the potential for the future. It's the potential, as you said, Lisa, for the long-term plan. And then, well, if they're living there, what can we do? My mindset was, when I own the property, what can I do immediately to let them know that I'm a person who cares, rather than,
I love that.
Rather than somebody who is just for the money. Because my personal belief is, if you show somebody you care, you will reap that benefit in some way in the future down the line. And so I was just, again, a little bit taken back, but I knew the potential of the properties, but also the potential of those tenants, of just a little bit of care could probably change, a whole bunch of how they were perceiving themselves as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that more, Jason, because I love everything you just said so much. That it's super important because and we've said this on the podcast before. Like, real estate investors get this bad rap of just being out for the money. How can I maximize profits? Like, I don't care about living conditions. Let's, lower expenses, raise rent, blah 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 blah. But like, Lisa and I aren't about that, and you're certainly not about that. I remember having these conversations when you saw these videos, and you were angry at the previous owner. Rightfully so. The guy's a slumlord, like, he really did not take care of this building. And why, if you're a tenant living in someone else's building that you don't own, you pay rent, they don't take care of it and give you, working utilities and a clean living space, why would you take care of their property?
Exactly.
So I think the full circle, and just like your whole mindset of, listen, I'll take care of it. Like, I'll take care of you, you take care of the property. Everyone, wins in this situation. Like, you get a valuable building, they get a nice, clean, safe place to live. And I think that's super important. And I wish more people would do that. And I fully see that this property will be renovated under your care. Like, you've been harping on, like, I want to get this fixed for the people that live there. Not because, like, I want to make more money. Like, you're like, I don't want these people in my building living like this. And you kind of inherited this problem. So I just really appreciate that. And I wish all real estate investors had that mindset, because I think the world would be a happier place. So yeah, I just wanted to double down on that, because that was really impressive to me and just made me happy. Yeah.
Tim,
All right.
and I will offer back to you guys, is that all of the analysis tools that you gave me allowed me to think through those things in a way that was like, look, this is not the end of the world. This does not make this property go negative. This is actually, investing up front is a way to reap more benefits in the future. If you were just looking at the cash portion of it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So the way that you taught, the two of you taught me to analyze the properties, I knew, and again, like I said, the tenants were already there. So that was a benefit that I was not was not initially in the calculus. So I was kind of already at an advantage, if you will.
I'll just say this really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the point that you're making, Jason, is really important, especially for new investors to keep in mind. There are tools to analyze, to look at the numbers, and to know if I have to put $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of work into the property, how is that going to impact my cash flow, my returns over the first year, 10 years, et cetera. And so there's mathematical answers to, should I buy this property or not? That once you kind of know those formulas, it does make it easy. You don't have to have the emotional, kind of decision-making part of it. And I think that's a really important part of the process to highlight too.
Yeah. So now that we have these properties under contract and we have folks living there, and you are moving from Germany to Korea, and there's all kinds of title, let's just do this. Let's go through the top 3 most shocking things that happened during this, that you were like, oh man, I wish I could have anticipated that. Or, oh, I wish Tim and Lisa would have harped on that a little bit more, because that was annoying. Like, let's go through the downside of real estate investing from abroad. Not the downside, but I don't know. Lisa and I are very realistic, and we're not going to say this is going to be smooth sailing. Come with us and we'll show you the golden road and it's going to be super easy and you're going to be in all these properties. Nuh-uh. It's real estate investing. There's always hiccups, especially from abroad. It's always a little bit hard. And that's why not everyone does it. If it was easy, everyone would do it and we wouldn't have a business. So like, show us what went wrong and how you overcame that.
Okay. So going wrong now is one of these tenants. No, it's so one of the tenants put a, let me just start from the safety net to begin with, though, right? And we got to go back to the fact that the realtor to the property management company to you guys, you're all connected, you all help. And so I never felt like I was alone, like I had to go find somebody new to take care of a problem. All of the people were already there. All of the team was already built. So I always had this team to rely on. So that made, again, sleeping at night, very, very easy because I knew that there were people that were trying to help, and it wasn't just you guys, it was also the people that you were connecting me with. So I felt like, you know what, they know more than I do. I'm going to ask them questions on what they'd recommend, and I'm probably going to follow those recommendations. Because who am I to say that I know more than you, or and I physically can't go do anything to the properties. But from the standpoint of, for the tenants, kind of knew, in one of the properties and one of the units, new tenants were going to be a challenge, kind of from the get-go, just when the property management company is trying to go there and look at things as closing is happening, as appraisers are trying to make things happen. If I remember correctly, there was a broken window and there was something else that the appraiser basically said, hey, I cannot appraise this until those things get fixed. And I was not the one who paid for the broken window. It was the realtor who paid for the broken window, unbeknownst to me until I was talking to him after the fact. So just from the standpoint of the people that you are connected with and you're connecting me with are good people as well. But then, right, so the tenants now, what we're dealing with is, unfortunately, we've got a eviction notice going on because the HVAC wasn't working. Great. Property management company goes out to the property and says, yep, I can see that the HVAC isn't working, but because of the way that you're living, I can't safely come into this house and work on anything because either there's clutter or there's broken stuff, or I cannot access the things that I need to fix to respond to your complaint. Here's what you need to do. And this is not me with my fingers in the pot. This is the property management company going in and making this stuff happen and just kind of informing me, hey, Jason, we're going to do this as long as you approve. Yep, I approve. Hey, we're going to recommend this as long as, yep, I approve. So it was more of a, hey, this is what we would do in this situation. Do you approve? And who am I to say no? So we're working through that. And I'll be honest, part of me is excited from the fact that, well, if they leave, then I can get things fixed in this property, right? And things put back the way it should be, rather than years and years of neglect, if you will, as well as previous landlord not doing anything and pipes and blah, 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 blah. And then backing all that up with, hey, analytical analysis saying that, well, I was going to save that money anyway, right? But now I'm just paying up front for things that, we had budgeted for in the calculus of seeing whether this was going to be a profitable property. I'm just shifting the timing of that. And thankfully, I have the funds available to be able to make it happen.
Nice.
And when you say you were going to save that anyway, that I'm assuming you're referring to what Lisa and I do on our spreadsheets with you, where it's 5% CapEx, 2 to 5% repairs and maintenance, even on a new property. So it's hard to, so I'm a visual person. It's hard to walk this through on a podcast, but basically like you said, they're already accounted for. Like, you ran the numbers and bought this property because you were already accounting for, 5% CapEx, 5% repairs and maintenance, and the numbers still made sense. So I think that's a great point that you said that, listen, I was going to save this anyway, theoretically, in my, emergency reserve account or a separate account for my new property or whatever. But since I have to pay it now, it still makes sense because I already accounted for these numbers from day one. So I think that's super important. Like, these repairs are always going to happen. When you own properties, you always have to do CapEx. You always have to make repairs. Just run your numbers right at the first, buy it right. And as long as it still makes sense with those numbers in place, you're good to go. And, fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, blessing in disguise, we don't know. It's day one for you, but, typically it's year 10, but for you, it's day one. And, when you do that, though, like, now you're going to be able to raise rents, right? I mean, it's you fix all these busted pipes, you put in new HVAC, you put in new flooring, new carpet, whatever. Like, you're gonna. I don't remember the numbers on your property, but you're gonna bump it up $100, $200, $300 a month in rent, and that changes the whole calculus again. It starts putting money back into your CapEx fund. So I just appreciate how you look at the holistic picture and not just, if you're a sky is falling type of person, real estate investing is probably not for you. If you have a broken window, if you have a broken HVAC, if the property manager calls and says, Jason, we have this issue, and your head explodes, maybe stick to your 401k. Because this stuff happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like and I can speak from personal experience. Like my first property, like when something would happen and like a tenant would call, I would just freak out, like, I got to fix it now. And why is it so much money? But now I'm like, okay, houses need maintenance. Like this is all part of the picture. Run your numbers, get your mind right. And like, it's all going to be fine. So I appreciate how you laid that out. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. I just get excited.
No. Fourth cup of coffee. All good. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, those are those two properties. And then the third one, we still haven't closed yet, even though we were supposed to close months ago. But again, I'm not in a hurry. There's nothing that I have that necessarily makes it have to close. It's still a smart investment. It's just been challenges along the way of actually getting it completed. And that's a very right. The two that we're talking about are duplex. Both of them are duplexes. And now this one, a single family home that's getting renovated that doesn't have tenants in it. I mean, it was, the contract was, you put the money down, we will renovate it and rent it out for you. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. How easier could that be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Until you have a bad subcontractor.
Well, but I mean,
has to get
at the same time, but even right. So I put a small amount of money down on the contract, but I still haven't put a large amount of money down. And oh, by the way, all of this time, the lender and the real estate and the property management, they're all talking, they're all helping out. They all realize that this is a crappy situation, and talking to each other and going, yeah, hey, this is how we're going to make it work.
Well, and that is so important. And I know, going back to the doing this from afar, from overseas, you've already talked about the teams on the ground that you've worked with and the communication that happens between the team members is so important, because there are going to be unexpected delays. We've had a lot of unexpected things happen in the last 18 months that have impacted all of us. And I always kind of come back to I expect there to be issues. I expect there to be unexpected things. I just want people to communicate with me so that I stay in the loop. And one of the things I've noticed as you've gone through this process, Jason, you're really good at reaching out and just saying, hey, would love to hear an update. Haven't heard an update from this person, got something from that person. And that's partly, I mean, what we do from afar is we kind of manage the team members and sometimes have to manage the communication, because they all have other clients and a lot of other things going on as well. What has that process been like for you as you've had to kind of manage some of that communication?
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. That actually, you're right. I would say that probably I know that I'm sending for this final property. I am sending, well, on all the properties until we get more settled. It's probably one email a week to all the different teams. But that, for me personally, I am not writing an emotional email. I'm more I'm writing hey, this is what I think I understand. Can you tell me? And this is where I think we're going. And I think, to your point, I think what is very beneficial that I've found worthwhile is letting people know where I think we are going, not regurgitating what has or hasn't happened in the past. Hey, so am I tracking correctly that the next step is this? And then once that's done, then these things are going to happen, right? Okay, so that's changing. All right, so we're going to shift that. Then that's going to cause these things to shift. And amazingly, what I've found is that the team appreciates that, because there's usually probably one or maybe two people that usually don't get that information and they don't understand, or they're not included. The title company is a great example. Like, the title company is the last to know. Oh, we're shifting closing. Oh, thanks, Jason, for letting us know that shipping the closing's not happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of and then certainly on the two duplex properties, I kind of found that once that started, it just continued, and I was just able to sit back and watch, and I was just CC'd on the conversation amongst the team. So Lisa, you're absolutely right. That is the biggest thing that I've found that I'm doing, but to me, that's not hard. That's not hard work. That's just, okay, where are we next with this? What's going on next?
Yeah. And I like how you really differentiate, like not rehashing everything that's already happened, but stay focused on what's supposed to happen next, and putting it into that context. This is how I understand it. This is the next thing that's going to happen. As far as I understand, what am I missing? What else do you need from me? And really kind of keeping it proactive. I love that.
Yeah, I really appreciate your emails too, because Lisa and I are usually copied on them, and Jason always kind of ends with, "I'm not mad. I just want an update." It's just like such a good send off. It really is though. Like it sounds genuine, and I think it is genuine. Where you're like Lisa said, like I'm not. All this happened. Doesn't matter. This is where I understand we're going. I'm not mad. I just want an update. And let's keep the conversation going. And you always get like positive responses with that. Like there's a certain email etiquette to these things, and I think the way you approach it and make sure everyone's included is super helpful. And that's something we really harp on. Is Lisa's very good at always remembering title. She's like, make sure title knows this. Like as soon as you're under contract on a property, just send an email to everyone, your realtor, your property manager, lender, title, everyone, just introduce them, put the inspector on there, put the appraiser on there, just get everyone talking constantly and just make sure everyone's involved in the loop, because some people forget different pieces of the puzzle. And if you can manage it as the investor as best you can with one email a week to everyone and just say, everyone update each other, I mean, that just makes the process go that much smoother. So I appreciate how you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's often the assumption, I know I've had a lot of people ask, well, shouldn't they know? Shouldn't the title company know? Shouldn't the lender talk to them? Well, maybe they should, but never assume that it's happened.
Never
right? Like
assume.
that's, I think I take that on as the buyer. And I do kind of think about it. It's a little bit of project management from afar, and just check in. And you know what? They might get tired of hearing from me. I'd rather they get a little tired of hearing from me than somebody is left completely in the dark and then at the last minute
absolutely
be like, wait, I didn't know anything about this.
Well, and I think too, to your point, Lisa, is also that the other philosophy that I have is you are wrong to think that somebody else is going to care more about this than you do.
So true.
If you're not willing to do your due diligence to manage and check in on things, why do you think that this lender or this property manager that, like you said, you're not the only person, right? Why would you? That's where I've seen people, my friends, get most frustrated, is like they think other people are going to care more than them. I'm like, dude, your philosophy is wrong. Like, this is yours. You need to care and help them help you.
Yeah.
So
yes,
I think that's such a great point. Yeah, because no assumptions can be made. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you hope these guys are all on the same wavelength as you, and they want the same thing as you do, but they certainly don't care as much as you should.
Right.
Like the lender makes his fees up front, his or her fees up front. The property manager, they make their 8 to 10% every month once it closes. But like they have a million other clients, and like they're not going to care about this one duplex nearly as much as the person who's buying it. So I think that's like, it seems like something that doesn't need to be put into words, but I'm glad you did, because it's very true. And I think that the investor needs to keep that in mind. Is this is your baby? Like they don't care if it. They care if it gets done, but not as much as you do. So, I think,
and the how that helps me is also, it keeps me from getting frustrated with them, right? Because you could easily consume yourself with whole bunches of frustration of like, oh, why didn't this happen then? Why didn't they do? Because I didn't tell them, or I didn't help them, or I didn't let them know, or I didn't, So again, I feel, because you guys do such a great job, I don't want somebody listening to this thinking that, oh, this is so easy. They probably don't. But at the same time, the you as the investor do need to have a hand in it from the standpoint of you care and you do need to manage and you do need to be actively involved. Is it a lot? Man, it is a whole lot less than I was expecting. So
that's great.
Well, again, because these teams are highly functioning teams, and they've made their businesses off of, and you guys have connected with folks who have made their businesses off of dealing with people like me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're used to this, and they have some great experiences, and they can teach. But they don't necessarily. That doesn't mean that they're gonna like do things without you telling them to do it, or just make it happen out of nowhere, type of thing.
Yeah.
Jason,
yes.
Before we try to wrap up our conversation, and as I sometimes like to say, land this plane, which is incredibly relevant, seeing as you're a pilot.
Wow.
I just want to take this in a completely different direction and say, do you have any just short stories to share from your career, your experience as a pilot? It would be super fun to hear something.
Oh my goodness. I've got plenty of stories. So, well, I do have to say this. My wife was also, or is also, a fighter pilot.
No way. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Man. So we have both we met in pilot training. So that was, that's
awesome.
Anyway, kind of rare, a little less rare these days, which is awesome. And I just, and this is something more, it's more people oriented than career oriented, but I have been extremely blessed. We have lived abroad now. When we finish this assignment, my kids will have been away from the United States for 5 years. Wow. We have had some amazing, they're the middle school, high school, some amazing opportunities to visit some amazing and live at some fantastic places. Mm-hmm. We had the opportunity to live in the UAE, someplace that I never expected that, if you would have asked me if I wanted to go, I would have said no. But after having gone, right, and experienced it, there are experiences that we as a family still talk about. And so it is awesome now living on an Air Force base, and we were doing that before as well. But I mean, the kids are always, they hear the jet noise and they're excited about it. And so anyway, it's a very interesting dynamic. But I feel very blessed, and I know that I am unique potentially, or not everybody has the type of family dynamics that I do, from the standpoint of kids and wife that understand, this lifestyle, understand what's going on and how to make it happen. And then to wrap this back to you guys, this is where you guys come in, because I feel so comfortable talking to you about this type of stuff because you are living the same experiences. You've done it, right? You're not talking to me as if, hey, I don't know what's going on, right? Or, oh, that sounds like a really big challenge. Because I've done so many of those programs that you're like, okay, you get to a point, you're like, that is the end of this is where the relationship ends because you can't help me anymore. But for you guys, like, I'm constantly learning, and it's anyway, it's been a great experience. Sorry, I brought that back to the real estate, but
I love it. And I so cool to learn that you and Don met in pilot training. And
I missed that.
We need to have back, see if we can get Don on it and just hear stories. Just hear stories. Let's forget the real estate for an episode and just hear stories. I would love to explore that. Yeah. No, and I really think it's both there where you guys have the same career experience that helps you stay on track as a family. I think it can be really valuable. And then bringing it back into real estate where, you and Don have really approached this together and, made sure that your goals are aligned and you're willingness to take risks and all of that is aligned. It doesn't always happen super easily for people, but it is so important to be willing to work through that and find that that place. I mean, where both partners are feel good about it, confident about it, and can work collectively and pull in the same direction. Jason, do you have anything that you would like to share as wisdom to those that might be listening and thinking about getting into real estate?
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. Get ready to learn, be ready to read. But from my experience, I feel so much more comfortable and confident doing what I'm doing now than anything I've done with investing in the past. Because something that we kind of touched on, but it's that control aspect. Mm-hmm. You have so much more control, even with all of the problems that we've dealt with. Those problems, though, are because of the amount of control. And I think that that's important. I mean, if you're going to put your money somewhere, don't you want to have a say in what it's doing and how it's doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Will it come with a little extra work? Absolutely. But is that work ridiculous? No. With the right team, it's not ridiculous at all. It's an email a week. Anyway. So.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing. It is inspiring, and we feel really privileged to know you, have gotten to work with you and Dawn, and we are looking forward to just kind of seeing where this goes for you, because I know it's just the beginning for you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be great. I'm looking forward to working with you some more too.
Awesome.
So fantastic.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the REI Concierge podcast. We would be thrilled if you would share this with a friend, pass it along to anybody. They don't even have to be a friend. Share it with a stranger. We don't care who you share it with. Share it with anybody. And if you would take some time to leave us a review, that would be awesome. And until next time,
happy real estate adventures.